Now, Germany's chancellor has made a rare public criticism of Israel. Friedrich Merz says Israel's actions can no longer be justified and that he feels compelled to speak out when international law is being broken. Now, these unusually strong comments from a German leader add to growing international pressure on Israel.
Is this moment a turning point in relations between Israel and one of its closest allies?
What the Israeli army is now doing in the Gaza Strip, I no longer understand, frankly, what its objective is. To cause such suffering to the civilian population, as has increasingly been the case in recent days, can no longer be justified as a fight against Hamas terrorism. When lines are crossed where international humanitarian law is now really being violated, then Germany, the German chancellor, must also say something about it.
Many see this as a historic statement. It's the first time a German government has so openly addressed the possible violation of international law by Israel in its ongoing war with Hamas. The comments come just days after a joint warning from Canada, France and the UK, pressuring Israel over its war in Gaza. Now it is Berlin that is ramping up its criticism of Israel, reflecting a shift in public sentiment. A recent survey shows that 80% of respondents view Israel's conduct in the war as unjustified. That's a rise of 11 percentage points over the last year. And even within Merz's own coalition, concerns are growing over the scale of the humanitarian crisis. Some voices are now calling for a halt to arms exports to Israel.
German weapons must not be used to fuel humanitarian disasters or to violate international law.
While Merz reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself, his remarks signal a shift between Israel and Germany, one of its staunchest Western allies.
And I'd like to welcome Shimon Stein, who served as Israel's ambassador to Germany from 2001 to 2007. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. As we've heard, this is a departure in what we're used to hearing from German leaders, especially Merz's conservatives, who until now have usually backed Israel's war in Gaza as one of self-defense against Hamas. And I'm wondering how you would interpret the chancellor's comments here.
Well, thanks for having me. Second, slight correction to your correspondent. It is not for the first time that Germany has expressed its criticism about Israeli policies in the West Bank and Gaza. The outgoing foreign minister, Ms. Baerbock, has on numerous occasions has expressed its criticism about Israeli policies. So that's simply to put the record straight. As far as the chancellor is concerned, I think that I can go along with him, and he has been restrained given the quite explicit and unequivocal criticism that was expressed by President Macron, the Prime Minister of Spain, and quite a number of other European countries. But it is true, from Germany you would expect a bit more restraint, but we have reached a point when Germany interests are not being upheld the way it understands its interest with respect to whatever Israel does. And I go along with his question that he no longer understands the objective, because I belong to those, and I'm not the only one, who clearly do not understand the real objective behind the current military operation and the way that we have been handling the humanitarian problem for quite some time.
What do you mean by Germany's interests no longer being upheld? It does appear that some line has been crossed for Chancellor Merz.
Yes, indeed, it has been crossed, because when I speak about German interest, I don't think that you can reconcile German interest with the creeping annexation. You cannot justify German interest with respect to values that it upholds in its foreign policy, but not only. When you look at Israel's objectives in Gaza, when you look at Prime Minister undefined total victory, and as a result also implementing President Trump's crazy idea about turning Gaza into a Riviera and evicting 2 million Palestinians. So if we speak about a triangle in German-Israeli relationship, which constitute interest, values, and remembrance, we have some problems on that triangular when it comes to the values that Israel, according to according to Germans' value system, Israel no longer uphold.
Now, the next big question will be whether this change in rhetoric that we see from the German government will actually lead to a change in German policy toward Israel. Do you expect to see one?
Well, I will not rule it out, though, as I said, the chancellor has been trying to be extremely cautious and restrained. But if the prime minister, I would rather speak about the prime minister, because on the one hand, you have the Israeli government, on the other hand, you have the Israeli civil society, which are two distinct things. But if Israel is determined, as the prime minister has said, to occupy Gaza, then Israel will have to take responsibility, in fact, full responsibility for the humanitarian situation. Will it be possible for us to do it? I have my own doubts, and especially because I don't see any value in occupying Gaza for a long time. Instead of thinking about a political perspective, how do we go from quite a number of success in defeating Hamas, and we have defeated Hamas militarily. How do we go from that to a political perspective? That is something that the Prime Minister has been keeping us from guessing what are his next steps. So if the next steps are occupation and continuing humanitarian disaster that is unfolding in front of our eyes, then I guess we will not leave any choice for the chancellor to take, in addition to his declaration, or also a few concrete measures to simply demonstrate Germany's criticism and unhappiness with the Israeli government.
Now, as former ambassador to Germany, you will have your finger on the pulse of politics here. As we know, Germany is Israel's second largest weapons supplier. And this week, we heard lawmakers from Germany's Social Democrats, who are in government together with Merz's conservatives. They've been calling for Germany to end weapons exports to Israel. Do you think that that is something Merz would consider?
Well, you know, when the Prime Minister will push our true friends and allies, you might see it happening. And mind you, it will not be the first time that Germany withhold sending Israeli weapons. It was also under the previous Chancellor Scholz. It was even to a certain degree a short time where Chancellor Merkel has withheld some providing us with needed weaponry. So that will not be unprecedented, but I do hope that we will not get to that point. That's my true hope, and that is something which has to do solely at this stage with the Prime Minister, who has taken that step, and I can only hope that there will be a rethinking in view of the increasingly isolation that Israel will find itself, is already find itself, and will even more be isolated, whether that is a price to pay in order to stay politically in office and sacrifice Israeli society for the sake of his preservation in power. I don't know, but as I said, it's for the Israeli public to decide whether we would like to see the continuation of the most extreme government that we have ever had in the history of Israel, and that will not be left unanswered as far as the support that we got even from our true allies.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us with your insights today. That is Shimon Stein, former Israeli ambassador to Germany.
Thank you.